Let's wind back to this issue of traditional partnerships that exist in the legal profession and perhaps the good and bad elements of those. And I mean, just from a cultural perspective, first of all, if we think about just a traditional law firm, one of the features I encountered was that within that sort of organism, if you like, you have different commitments to work, to working hours, to performance. And when you put that within a group of people, if it's a group of lawyers, associate solicitors, or partners, that inequality of effort can breed a fair bit of politics, sometimes some frustration and some contempt as well in its worst point. Did you get any experience of that when you were back in your previous firms?
The last firm I was at, there was quite a difficult change in the ownership of that firm, sort of halfway, I'd say about a few years after I joined. Now that didn't affect me directly, but it was clear that sort of going forward, because of the turbulence they'd been through, the scope for progression then was limited. Hence one of the reasons for looking around. But the point that you make about partnerships, and I think you've been through this yourself. You've got a disparate group of people who've just been thrown together by circumstance, and all of a sudden, we're running this business now. Whereas, in the true sense of a partnership, you'd want it almost to be like a marriage.
Yes.
That, I know you so well and trust you so well, I'm happy to go into business with you. If you've got a burgeoning business that's bringing in partners, who are you?
Well, that's the thing.
What do you bring to it? And then you get the clashes, don't you?
Well, you do. And I always I've heard this comparison to marriages very often, and it's an apt comparison. But I actually think that partnerships are more difficult to get away from. If a marriage fails, then usually both parties will see it. Yeah. But in a partnership, because you've already got these disparate aspirations. You've already, in some cases, got a lack of unity. Yeah. But it won't necessarily be in all of the partners' interest to go their separate ways.
No.
So when I had my experience in a partnership where it went badly wrong,
how many were in that? Was it?
Well, in the end, just through circumstances, the equity partners in the firm whittled down, and in the end, there were only two of us. We fell out badly. Yeah, and with the benefit of hindsight, that I wasn't blame free at all in that scenario, and very rarely in any sort of relationship breakdown would it be all one party's fault. But when it hits the buffers, the problem is that there's not just money involved, there's reputations involved, there's egos involved. And it makes it very difficult to get out of in a way which suits all parties. So even if you hang around at your firm for long enough and you get partnership, the idea that this is some sort of euphoria and that you've made it and that you're now in a position which is where you've always wanted to be isn't necessarily right.
Well, it's in a way, if you take again, this is all hindsight, because obviously when we started, I'd say if you asked a lot of the people we qualified with, they'd be saying, well, what's your aspirations? I want to do this and this, and I want to be a partner. A partner of what? What are you, who are you going to be with? What's the business going to look like by the time you reach that level? What you're actually aspiring to? And so I can remember, when I went back west to a firm for 18 months or so, the amount of time that the partnership meetings took within that business, big old business, 5 offices, 5 receptionists, everything that comes with it, all the admin and that comes with it. Taking the eye off the ball from, well, we could be doing some work here and sort of minimize it all. I just thought, even if I stayed here, I was heading up a department at the time. Some partner there was on sabbatical, so I was sort of getting a taste of what a partnership is like without having the commitment. This was quite a good experience, actually. But I thought, well, I wouldn't necessarily want this, even if I'm offered it. And that's not, Oh, you would say that, wouldn't you? Because you went off it. But he said, genuinely thinking, is that it?
Well, that's right. I mean, if that's what you've got to look forward to,
Yeah.
then there's got to be some sort of attraction to that. I mean, my experience of this is when you do get someone saying, if you ask the question, what are your ambitions in your legal career? And they do say, I want to be a partner at this firm.
Yeah.
They'll usually fall into three categories. The first is you do get a percentage of people who genuinely love their firm. They love their brand. They love the people they work with.
Yeah.
They like the culture. And they generally want to be part of the leadership team for that particular business. And fair play to them. I think they should pursue that. I think they're the minority.
I was going to say, how many of them are there?
Well, exactly. I think the two more common relate firstly to status and secondly to money.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with either of them. But I think it's a mistake to think that just hanging round and then getting a word changed on your business card actually delivers either of those things.
Yeah.
Because one of the things within a partnership is, as you rightly say, you're moving into a situation where the investments in the business infrastructure are not something you've had an influence over. And that could mean that once you've got your feet under the table and you start getting to grips with the accounts of the practice, you might think, why have we got these 5 offices? Why don't we centralise anything? Why do we have these endless meetings when we could be fee earning? Try changing that. As a new partner in a business is not easy.
Well, you'd have the seniority thing, even though you might be in as equal partners. If you've got Mr. Jones, who's been there for 50 years, he's going to have the main say, isn't he? Because there's cultures there within partnerships, isn't there? This is how we've always done it. And yes, you might be invited on and you're on board and with that notional idea of, everyone's got a say. But in reality, how does it always pan out? But I mean, look, we're having a bit of a downer on on the structure.
It's not
there,
all bad.
No. I mean, I'm talking it from a perspective of small to medium-sized firms. This has worked for years for a lot of people. So I'm not knocking it completely, but just it didn't crop up for me, and it didn't suit me.
That's right. I mean, to be fair to you, that is absolutely right. I mean, mates of ours and contacts who work for the bigger corporate firms, I don't think these problems necessarily manifest themselves in the same way. And also, some lawyers do need to be part of a big team with a wide diversity of legal skills.
It depends on the work and what they're practicing in.
Completely. And certain clients will have a level of expectation. So some clients in the corporate world particularly, they do want someone with a London postcode. They do want someone with a very modern, well-equipped, high street office or really good postcode, as I say. They do want, they do expect a certain level of charging, and sometimes it can be a turn off if they don't get it. So,
they want to be stung.
Yeah, exactly. We're not aiming at any particular firm, I can assure you.